To start off, we're going to be creating a dialog data scriptable object, which is going to be a container for all our lines and the name of the character. So if you have no idea what scriptable objects are, I suggest that you go and watch a short tutorial on what they do and how to implement them. But in short, they are a way to manage data in Unity. So instead of running inside the scene, we're going to be making a type of data that we can store as objects and call whenever we like. I went ahead and created a dialog data script, and we're going to be modifying it. So using Unity engine, public class dialog data, and instead of inheriting from mono behavior, a scriptable object is its own type of class. So scriptable object, scriptable object. So we only need two types of information in our scriptable object. One is the name of the speaker. This is optional, by the way. You can just have the dialogues, but I like to do it like this: public string speaker name, and we'll have an array of lines that the speaker is going to speak. Lines. Okay, so to make sure that we can create this dialog data, we're going to have to assign something like this: create a set menu, and inside we're going to have a file name. Let's call this dialog data, and we're going to be storing it inside a menu which is dialog data. Okay, we're done with the scriptable object. Let's go ahead and recompile. Okay, now if you right click here, you can on the create menu, you can see that you can create a dialog data. Let's go ahead and create one, and we'll call it npc dialog. So here you can see that we have two fields, the speaker names and the line. Let's assign the speaker name. Let's call him random npc, and let's add a line. Hi there. Another line, let's say it's a good day today. Okay. So we learned how to create dialog data. So let's make a manager that calls this dialog data and assign this to a dialog manager that's going to go through these lines depending on what NPC you're speaking to. But before that, we need to actually create the area where our dialogues will be communicated. Let's go to 2D mode. We need a canvas. On this canvas, we are going to have a dialog box. Okay, sorry, instead of creating M2, we need another image. Let's go with image, and this is our dialog box. Let's place it at the bottom there and resize it however we like. Yeah, I'm happy with this. You can assign it a color like this. I like to keep this orange, and inside our dialog box there will be two text. We are going to be using text mesh pro for this. One is the name of the speaker. Let's call it speaker name. Speaker name. Let's reduce the size of the font to something like 18, and let's drag this right here. And we're going to be limiting the area in which this can work. Go ahead and duplicate this, and this is the region where our dialogues will be displayed. We can make this a little bigger, 21, and let's increase the size of the field. This seems good. Okay, let's call this dialog text. Okay, so we're done. Let's move on to the next step. Okay, so for our next step, we're going to be creating a dialog manager script. Let's go ahead and call this dialog manager, and let's open this up in Visual Studio. for this code we need references to our dialog box and the three text. So let's call this public game object dialog box and public game object. Since we're using text mesh pro, you have to use tm pro up here. So publish text mesh pro UGY, character name, or let's call it speaker name, public text mesh pro UGY, dialog text. And then we need a reference to our active dialog, and we know that we store our dialog inside the dialog data scriptable object. So we have to do something like this: public dialog data, let's call this data. Okay, so we need a function that starts the dialog. So public, let's call this start dialog, and as a parameter we're going to pass a dialog data, and let's call this, instead of calling this data, let's call this current data, and we're going to be passing a data. And what this gonna do is, let's go back to Unity and hide our dialog box, and whenever we start a dialog we want the dialog box to be active, and then we're going to assign this data to our current data. Current data is equals to data, and then we're going to assign the name inside the dialog data, which is this. So at first we're going to assign the character name first, which is our speaker name. Since this is a text mesh, we have to add dot text here as well. So our dialog data contains our speaker name inside this string, so we're basically going to be calling the current data dot speaker name. And for our line, for when we have multiple lines inside our dialog, we have to have an index. So let's just call this private variable private index, my bad, index, sorry. And our first dialog will be the line that's at index 0. Dialog text dot text is equals to current data dot, we store our dialog inside lines, index. Okay. Yeah, so we basically started our dialog. Now we need a way to cycle through our dialogues and end the dialog. So let's go ahead and create another function named next dialog. So what the next dialog will do, it will immediately increment our index, and if our index is less than the amount of lines that's inside our array, we are going to be assigning the next line. So dialog dot text is equals to current data dot lines index. Dialog text dot text. Else we're going to end the dialog. So end dialog. Let's go ahead and make a function for ending the dialog. For ending our dialog, we're basically going to hide the dialog box again. So dialog box dot set active false, and we're going to remove our current data from the variable here. Current data is equals to null. So we're basically done with our. Okay, so go ahead and create an empty object that's going to be serving as a dialog manager. Assign the dialog manager script here, and assign the dialog box here, the speaker name here, and dialog text here. Okay, so we're basically done with our dialog system. Now we just need a way to interact with the NPCs so we can initiate the dialogues. There are several ways you can go about this. You can click on the NPCs, or you can go ahead walk up to them and interact. Since I have a third person character here, we're going to have a way to walk up to this NPC, and if we press a specific button, our dialog box will show up, and we can cycle through the dialogues with another button such as E or space. Okay, so let's go ahead and make that. Before we make our interact script, let's go ahead and create a way for these NPCs to store different lines of dialogue or different dialogue data. So let's call this NPC dialogue. Open this up in VS. Okay, for this we're just going to have a variable public dialog data, my data, for example. Okay, let's go ahead and reload the DOM. Once you're done, drag the NPC dialog script here, and I went ahead and created a trigger box collider for these region we can interact with the NPC with. As you can see, it's here. It has to be a trigger, and for our last script, we're going to create a player interact script. Okay. Inside of player interact, we need references to our dialog manager. So public dialog manager, let's call this manager, and we need a reference to the NPC we're talking to. So current NPC dialog. So how are we going to set that? We use void on trigger enter, and we have to go ahead and assign NPC tag to this NPC over here. And going back to the code, if other.compare tag is an NPC, then we are going to assign current NPC dialog with other.gameObject.get component NPC dialog. It's wrong here. Sorry. NPC dialog. So we need a way to reset this as well. On trigger exit. If other.compare tag NPC, we're going to refresh our current NPC dialog. Other.gameObject. So my bad. Null. Okay. So we need a way to actually interact, and we're going to be doing this inside our update. So if our current NPC dialog is not equals to null, and we press the E button, for example, key code.e, we are going to use the manager to start our dialog, and which dialog it will be? To be our current NPC dialog. Okay. What's wrong here? PC dialog to NPC. Oh, sorry. So NPC dialog has a my data. So and we also need a way to cycle through the dialog. So if input dot get key down, we could use E or another button like space. We are going to cycle through the dialogs. Next dialog. And as you can see on the dialog manager, we have an automatic way of ending the dialog. Let's go ahead and test this in Unity. Okay, we forgot to assign all the scripts. So inside our player, we'll assign player interact, drag our dialog manager here. On our NPC, we drag the dialogues that we created at the start of the video, and hopefully this works now. Okay, so we are going to walk up to this cube, and if we press A, you can see that it's playing the dialogue. If you press space, it's moving to the next dialogue, and another space, it's ending the dialogue. Cool.